All right. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Well, there's one person here. Happy New Year. This is the first live stream on this channel for 2024. And tonight we're going to talk about data. We're going to go over some numbers and some monetary values. Let me make sure I can see myself here. It has been raining cats and dogs here in the DMV all day. Those to me are perfect days for teleworking and working at home or in a coffee shop. I actually like nice rainy days. T. Riddler, we meet again. Thank you for your positive words last night over on my sports channel, everyone. For those of you who don't know, the University of Michigan football team, they are the college football national champions, and they just won last night, defeating the Washington Huskies down in H-Town. All right. I knew this topic would pique Ray Alexander's interests, and I'll be curious to see what Ray has to say in the chat about all of this, and also which emails I receive afterwards. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about household median income, what it is, what it means, and why we should care. The equalizer is here. Salty the equalizer, he's gonna have a gander of this as well. Okay, without further ado, let me play the intro. I think Salty will recognize this. And let's see if I can wrap this up within an hour. I am doing a post-holiday season cleanse. And as a part of that, you're not supposed to eat after a certain hour. So I want to wrap this up and eat and start this year off on a healthy note. Let me get rid of this ad here. Please smash that like button on the way in. Also, please consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. These ads, they've removed the skip the ad feature. Give me a second, everyone. I just want to make sure I can see myself. All right, there's me. All right, here's the intro. Because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information.
Top 10% income earner entry, $152,321. And number of returns was just under 14 million. Entry into 1%, $548,336 a year. Number of returns, or people basically, rounding 1.3 million. Top 0.1%, I'm rounding again, 2.6 million a year. Returns, 120, I'm rounding, 128,000. 0.01%, basically 14.7 million a year. Number of returns, 12,000, almost 600. Dropped again significantly. 0.001%, 77 million plus a year. That's only 1,100 people. That's it. So when people walking around here talking about money, I just laugh. You don't know money.
Because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information. All right, everyone, that introduction was compliments of Salchi, the equalizer, on those times that he's come up on my panel here and on my platform. I've asked him to read off the percentages. He's in the financial sector, and a lot of people don't have a feel for what a 1%er is, and a 5%er, and a 10%er, or a 0.1%er, or a 0.01%er. And so they have no feel for dollar amounts and wealth, and who's really jet setting and who's working class. People don't know. They assume that, okay, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a division director or a program analyst in the federal government, or you're a physician, or you're an architect. You must be winning. You must be making six figures. But are you? So, all right, we're going to talk about median household income. But before I jump into that, I want to say really, really quickly, everybody, life is short. Get the most out of every day. Get the most out of everything. Don't hold grudges. Try to patch up disagreements with people you have disagreements with. I learned today that a close friend from high school, he passed away. Sometimes he shows up in my chat. Well, he showed up in my chat, but I learned today that he passed away. I don't know why. Well, that's between if the family wants to release that. But just yeah, life is short. That's my free advice for today. Try to make the best of every day and your lives and with your loved ones. Okay. This stream. So I thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel and who now follows this channel. I think a lot of people hit the subscribe button because of my interview with Dr. Tiasan Johnson. I do plan to ask Dr. Tiasan Johnson to come back, and I think maybe we could talk about the black male agenda, the black male voting agenda, since this is an election year. Unfortunately, I can't have Dr. Tiasan Johnson every stream, but Dr. Tiasan Johnson came to the channel last year. David Williams, he came to the channel last year, and he helped inspire this stream in certain ways. And I'm gonna have Aaron Clary come back. He agreed to come back and talk about his book, Enjoy the Decline. I think that's very relevant for this year, which is an election year. And I just want to say, I'm going to put this out here again. I think we can get valuable information. I need to slow down sometimes. We can get valuable information from people who don't look like us. The master teacher just featured a video from Dr. Orion Taraban. And so I plan to have guests of all kinds, but there's another reason I'm sharing that. So I think my mother is following my content now on YouTube, this channel and my science channel. And we talk about that. We talk about that for that generation, for the Black Boomer generation. It matters if the person giving the information is white or Black. And my mother watched my last upload for 2023, which involved that woman being 38 and selfish. And it was a white woman. I think some of you probably watched it. It didn't get anywhere near the views that my interview with Dr. Tiasan Johnson got, but it was a white woman. And my mother approached me after she watched it. She said, you should think about doing stuff more for more Black-centered stuff. And I do that, but I also think that there's value that could be, we can get value from other people as well. So you'll see some of that here. And I'm going to bring my mother up again as this goes on. All right. So where did this stream come from? So I am working on, I plan to do it this year. I plan to get part one of my book published. It is a basketball related book, but it's asking some deeper questions and it's talking about some deeper things. It's a sports and life related story. And it deals with a lot of things that we talk about here in the YouTube streets. Environments, how have environments changed, and what things have happened to create the current environments that we see and that we're experiencing. I'm not going to belabor this. This link is in the description box in case you want to take a look and read for yourselves. One other thing before I jump in. On that slide, if any of you are on Facebook, that slide, that credentials, that ending slide that I show, it says the Big Words blog site Facebook page. I don't have control over that page anymore, right? So if you're on Facebook, please follow me here at the Big Words LLC Facebook page. Okay. The master teacher's there in the chat. He'll probably chuckle when he hears this. So he will probably chuckle when he hears this. it's not safe to post everything on your personal Facebook wall. So for all the content I create, it's not for everybody. And if you're on Facebook, there are a lot of people who've left Facebook. You learn that everything is not Facebook appropriate. There are things we talk about here that will shatter people's worldview and their concept of reality if they see it. And so the Big Words LLC Facebook page, that's my Facebook page for my content. So if you're on Facebook, please consider joining that. All right. Now that all that's out of the way, where did this stream come from? So household median income. Well, before the new year, I started watching Medium Man. Medium Man, I'm sure some of you all are familiar with Medium Man. His stats game is strong. His stats muscles are strong. And hey, if any of you guys know Medium Man, I wouldn't mind interviewing Medium Man at some point, because he's bringing the data, he's bringing the stats, and he's knocking back a lot of the perceptions and misconceptions of what's happening in Black America using the statistics. So I'd like to interview him at some point. So he helped inspire this, and Diamond Dave helped inspire this. And he also, in his own way, challenged me to create, not necessarily follow the Cat Williams, Shannon Sharp stuff all the time, but to create meaningful stuff and meaningful content that will get people to think. And one of the things Diamond Dave and his content, if you haven't watched it, that interview is in my library. One of the things Diamond Dave talks about, and we talked about this in our interview, is that environments are curated, and we are in a bit of a economic war. So everybody, a lot of people are focused on race. I just described my beloved mother, and it's a election year, so folks are the politicians are going to come out and say, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. President Biden just did his initial speech focusing on saving democracy, and they're going to try to draw your attention to certain things. But one of Diamond Dave's arguments is that we're in an economic war. We've always been in an economic war, and we will always be in an economic war. And this country was, in fact, founded on economics. And that's the most important thing, not voting rights, not all these other things that they have us chasing after and looking at. It's economics. All right. So he helped inspire this stream. So before the new year, I was watching their content. I was watching somebody's content. And sometimes you listen to these things and they kind of go over your head, or you just kind of focus on something else. But one night, household median income, that went into my ears and it stuck in my brain. And it started rolling over and over and over and over again. Household median income. And I think I went to bed that night thinking about household median income. The median. What's the median? The median. The central number, the middle number of a distribution. And I started thinking about the mean. And then I thought about the mode. And the scientist in me really started turning these terms over in my mind. So I actually first learned about these things back in middle school. I learned about these before I got to high school, but our educational system sometimes does a poor job of telling us why we're learning these things. So I learned these things back as a preteen: the mean, the mode, and the median. Let's do a very, very brief review of what those are for those who don't know. We should learn something on this channel all the time. The mean, the median, and the mode. No, that's the wrong one. Where is it? Ah, here we go. All right. So the mean. So I want you guys to think about a distribution of numbers, a sample set, a distribution of numbers. I'm going to fly through this. All right. The mean is the sum of all the numbers divided by the total number of replicates. Okay. So in this example, the mean, you have You have Jason, David, Josh, Olivia, Susan, Christine, and they each have a number. So you have 8, 12, 7, 5, 15, and 7. Add those together, divide that by 6. Okay. And the mean turns out to be 9. So the total is 54 of all these numbers, divide that by 6, and you get 9. That's the mean. Okay. So what's the median? What's the median? The median is the middle number. Okay. Again, think distribution. You have a distribution of numbers, you have a sample set. The median is the middle number. So of all these numbers here, 8, 5, 7, 8, 12, and 15, the median is actually, if you add 7 and 8 together, you get 15, divide that by 2. So the median is 7.5. That's your middle number. All right. For some of you who are going back to elementary school, for some of you who are going back to high school, maybe some people never got this. So the mode is simply the number that shows up the most. So in this particular set, that number would be 7 because you have 6 numbers. 7 is here twice. So that's the mode. So mean, median, and mode. So what's the fascination with median household income? What's the fascination with that? Well, here in the YouTube streets, when you're talking about some of the gender stuff, genders getting along, who wants to date whom, and who's interested in whom, and Ray Alexander is there. When you're talking about assortative mating, when you're talking about who's college educated, and you're talking about who's blue collar and who's not, who's a Blue Henry, who's a Blake. No, who? I forgot what they were. There's a Blue Henry, and then there's Henry, and then there's Keith, and then there's, I forgot all the Kevin's avatars. But this comes up. This comes up in the dating space. That's one context for it. But I'm also gonna, in this stream, expand it, since this is an election year, and going back to what Diamond Dave said, if we're in an economic war, quote unquote, I'm going to show data showing that different ethnic groups make different amounts of money. And so one of the questions I'm going to end the stream with is, how do you account for these different ethnic groups making different amounts of money or having different household incomes? So let's walk through some of this data. I'm going to sprint through this. I'm not going to try to be long and belabor these things, but I think this is important to think about. People are talking about this in terms of, well, Ray Alexander's here, the dating and mating aspect, but also as President Biden and whoever emerges on the Republican side, as they start talking to you about what you should be thinking about and what they want you to vote for them for, keep these numbers in the back of your mind and think about, okay, why are they not talking about this? Think about, what are they talking about? What are they trying to draw my attention to? And think about, why are these numbers the way that they are? Why are these numbers the way that they are? All right. So the first one, let's go to, this is from the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. And I believe this is based off of Census Bureau data. So if you have issues with this data, you have an issue with the federal government and the Census Bureau. All of these links for now are below in the description box. If YouTube doesn't like your links, they will poach them out. But you guys can do a Google search yourself. Okay, I'm going to sprint through these. So this is from the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. This was published on November 9th, 2023, and it says income and wealth in the United States, an overview of recent data. So when they post these numbers, they're only it's from the previous year. So they collect the data, they collate the data, they calculate the data. And so when you're looking at these numbers, it's usually from the previous year, because it takes time to gather these numbers and calculate these numbers and calculate the means and the standard deviations and the medians and the modes and whatever. Okay, so what's interesting about this page. So Income and wealth in the United States, an overview of recent data. Okay. So according to ASEC, I'd have to scroll to see what that acronym means. The median household income in 2022 was 74,580. So they looked at the total population, and so that's your distribution. And so your median income in the middle. And so for the median, you're going to have half is going to be below that number, half is going to be above that number. But the middle number is for the total US population, $74,580. That was in 2022. Okay. Now let's break that down. Let's disaggregate this data. Okay, so you can see the Northeast and the West have higher median household incomes than the Midwest and the South. Okay, so let's look at this column. 2022 median household income for the United States, it was 74,580. For the Northeast, where I live, it's $80,360. For the West, it's $82,890. For the Midwest, it's $73,070. For the South, it's $68,230. All right. So it costs more to live on the Northeast and on the West Coast. All right. This table says median household incomes vary widely across the United States. Here where I live in the DMV, the median household income is $101,027. Remember, that's the middle number. So you have quite a few people above that. Okay. That's the DMV. New Jersey, it's $96,346. Maryland, which is arguably, well, that's part of the DMV, $94,991. Okay, these links are below in the description box. Mississippi, which is typically known as the poorest state in the union, $52,719. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, now this is the part. This is the part here. My mother, I'm going to send her this video because she said to me, why don't you consider doing stuff centered around Black people? But I do that, but I do a bunch of other things too. So this is the fascinating part. In 2022, median household income varied considerably by race and ethnicity. All right, so if you look at the total, let's look at 2022. The median household income for the total population, all races and ethnicities, $74,580. For Asians, the number is $108,700. That's their middle number. So you have people on the bottom, but you have people going much higher than that. That's the middle number, 108,000. For white non-Hispanics, the number is $81,060. Okay, so they're in second place. Our European cousins are in second place. The Hispanics, any race, all right, for them, it's $62,800. That's their median income. And who's bringing up the rear? It's us. It's the Foundation of Black Americans at $52,860. Okay. So some would look back at, I don't know if Ray Alexander is still there, but Ray Alexander asked me partway through 2023 to do a video on Patrick Bet-David's video glorifying how Indian parents raised their families. Some people may have looked and said, why is Dr. Dunbar talking about this? Who cares what Indian families do? Well, if you think about median household income, they are Asians and they are at the front of the line in terms of median household income. So part of science is actually analysis of the data. You have the data, you've calculated the data, you've collated the data, you've disaggregated the data. How do you explain this? How do you explain these numbers? You guys don't have to give answers there in the chat. You could speculate on this. You could give your hypotheses. But what do these numbers mean? Okay. And also keep in mind that a lot of people in our community, we're often looking at what white Americans are doing and what they're making, but they're not in first place. Asians are in first place. How do you explain that? How do you explain that? Keep these numbers in mind during this electoral year when the candidates are talking. What are they talking about? Is anybody talking about this? And also, I think this kind of brings to light the importance of this whole reparations argument. I don't expect to get reparations. Okay. There's a whole sector on YouTube talking about that. Cut the check and give us our check. But when you look at these numbers, is there something about the legacy of slavery that's causing this? Okay. This link is below in the description box in case any of you want to take a look at it yourselves. Let me close that so I don't get myself confused here. Let me see. What did I want to? This one, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this link. This is another one. This is from Nerd Wallet. Salchi's probably seen this before. Hey, everyone, please smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you want to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are below in the description box. The Super Chat is live. And if you're watching this on the playback, you can also leave a super thanks. Not you, Mom. If you watch this, you've already done enough. That's a little joke there. She'll probably look at this and say, oh my God, he's talking about me online. But Ray Alexander says, while Microsoft Word activates, he says, I wanted a review of Asian households, family structures, and networks in order for us to consider additional options for us as a people as well. Okay. And that economic data might have been the missing piece from that live stream, right? But that kind of links together, other than me and Ray wanting to highlight Patrick Bet-David's video. That's kind of the missing piece. Is they're at the top of the list in terms of median household income. My Cash App and PayPal are here. All right, this link right here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This one just talks about what is the median household income. And this talks, it's essentially the same data, but looking at the different states. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This breaks down the states and the locales. Salchi, I'm sure, has more exquisite data than this than I do. Let me close that. Now, another thing that comes up, this is where it's going to get a little bit juicy, but we're just talking about data here. And I think Medium Man covered some of this on his channel. And I don't know that Diamond Dave has made whole videos on this. He has a vast library, but I do recall seeing him in someone's chat saying, okay, well, the Bureau of Labor Statistics say that men, regardless of what we hear, okay, regardless of these narratives and these things that we hear, men still make more money than women do. Okay, for the women watching this, I'm not saying this to start any fights. I'm not saying this to be inflammatory. Okay, but this is data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Median earnings. Okay, this says median earnings for women in 2022 were 83% of the median for men. Okay, and so what this table is showing us, okay, is this is looking from the year 2000 to 2010. I thought this went up to 2022. Well, anyway, this data for now, this is going from 2000 to 2010. And so the question is, have these numbers changed? But for each of these, you're taking the ratio of what the women make, and you're putting it that on the numerator, and you're putting what the men make on the denominator. You're dividing that, multiplying that by 100. And so for all of these ethnic groups, what you're seeing is that women have made in these years less money than men. Okay, for the Black race, for our ethnic group, for in 2000 it was 81%. So they made 16% less money median household income than men, and then the gap over 10 years it's slowly closed. Oh, here's my I can scroll down. So let's look at 2022. Okay, so in 2022 that number closed to about 10%. So right now, according to this data, there's a 10% differential between what Black men and Black women make. So according to this data set, men still make more. Okay, let me move on to another data set. This link is below in the description box. Man, it's raining cats and dogs here. If the power goes out for some reason, guys, that's what happened. If this goes dark, sometimes things happen to the electrical grid when things go dark, when it's raining cats and dogs. All right. This one, I thought this one was interesting. Shout out to Diamond Dave. This is also from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, the link is below in the description box. This table 3 says median usual weekly earnings of full-time wage and salary workers by age, race, let's see, Hispanic or Latino ethnicity, and sex. Fourth quarter 2022 averages, not seasonally adjusted. I'm going to focus us here. There are a lot of things broken down here, but I'm going to focus us here to Black or African American. Shout out to my mom. If you look at these here, okay, 16 years and over. 16, let me look at the column. Okay, so you have total numbers of workers, median weekly earnings. So total numbers of workers 16 years and over for let me look at those again. Total number of workers in the thousands and median weekly earnings. Okay. Let's go over to the gender breakdown before I confuse myself here. So for men, you have men over here and women over here. So for Black or African American, for the men, the number of workers in the thousands, you have slightly more Black women in the workforce, according to this data, than men. So for the men, it's 7,869, and for the women, it's 8,117. And that's consistent with what we've heard about there being more women than men, and also probably more educated women, and vice versa. So this doesn't break down which sector these are in. So now if you look at the age group, so that was 16 years or over. So 16 to 24 years, the number 790 versus 665. That's interesting that the number went down. For 25 years and over, the number is 7,079. For the women, it's 7,452. For 25 to 54 years, the number is 5,562 to 5,899. And so now let's take a look at the median weekly earnings. So for the men, 16 years and over, 951 to 856. Those units are, I think those are whole dollars. So for black men, 16 years and over, then the number is 951 compared to 856. For the age group 16 to 24 years, it's $668 for men and $629 for women. Okay. For 25 years and over, the number is 998 compared to 885 men compared to women. And then for 25 to 54 years of age, it's 976 compared to 896 for women. Okay. And for 55 years and over, the number is 1,082 compared to 828 for the women. And again, this is weekly earnings, and that's for Black people. Okay. And if you take a look at the other ethnic groups, yeah, for the white population, men make more. For the Asian population, the men make more. And for the Hispanic population, the men make more in terms of weekly earnings. So again, we hear about gender inequity in terms of salary and in terms of income. How do you explain these numbers? Why are these numbers like this? There are whole podcasts and books written on this. But I just thinking when our politicians are talking to us, what are they talking about? What are they not talking about? Okay. Salchi says, this is interesting because it looks like this is different from household income. He says real median personal income in the United States in 2022 was 40,480. Okay, so there's something different about the household. The household must mean that must involve combining to some degree. All right, so this one, you guys are really gonna dig this one. Okay, now we're gonna go over to blackdemographics.com. Okay, shout out to my mom. Why don't you make more content centered around Black people's concerns and Black people's lives? Okay, so let's go to the sun. Let's go to blackdemographics.com. Okay, this link is below in the description box. So we're going to start general once again, and then we're going to go down into gender. And close this. And I'm not an expert in parsing out household median income versus, what does Sachi say, real median personal income. Okay, I'm not an economic professional. I'm not an economics professional. I'm a content creator. I'm a scientist. I'm a writer and a thinker. Okay, so this is from blackdemographics.com. All right. For those of you unfamiliar, I think everyone in the chat is familiar with this, but there is a site called blackdemographics.com that captures, reports, and presents all of the relevant data for the Black community in the United States. Okay, so this tab was called income. So now we're comparing Black people to all other races. Okay, so African American income. So the median weekly earnings by age, we might have just seen this, but this is here on blackdemographics.com. 16 to 24 years of age, Black boys and men, the value is $648. For all races, it's $714. Okay, 16 to 24 years of age, girls and women. So this is Black girls and women. The value is $657. For all races, it's $672. So they're making slightly less than all other women. For ages 25 to 54 years for Black men, the value is $1,014. For all races, it's $1,247. For Black women, ages 25 to 54 years, that value is $895. For all other races, it's $1,055. So there's a slight drop off there in comparison to other races, but also in comparison to Black men of the same age cohort. Very interesting. 55 years and over for the men, it's $1,128. For all races, it's $1,296. For Black women, ages 55 years and over, it's $925. For all other races, it's $1,032. Okay. So those Black women 55 years and over, they're making less money than the men of their cohort. Okay. And they're making less money than women of all races, I guess, when you combine them. So then that's interesting. How do you account for that? How do you account for the women making less money than the men when you break this out over these ages? Is it the majors they're choosing? Is it something else? How do you explain that? How do we explain that? For the people watching, how do you explain this? Is it sexism? Is it gender discrimination? Is it lesser involvement in the STEMs? Is it the majors chosen? Is it that there's more men in the blue collar trades? How do you explain all of this? Okay. All right. So let's go to the last one. This is also from blackdemographics.com. I'm at about 40 minutes. And this is the last one that I'm going to show. Actually, let me just kind of refresh myself before I show it to you guys. Okay, this one is entitled Black Men / Women, Who Works and for How Much? Who works and for how much? And I think some of you in the chat, you've seen these data sets already. Okay, Black men / women, who works and for how much? All right, so I'm going to scroll down. The full figure for this is below. Okay, so how many Black men and women are in the labor force? This is very, very interesting. So employment status, total men and women, 16 and older. Okay, so there are 16.9 million Black women in the labor force versus 15.1 million Black men in the labor force. Worked full-time year-round, 7 million Black women versus 6.7 million Black men. Part-time / less than year-round, 3.9 million Black women versus 3.1 million Black men. No earnings all year, 6 million versus 5.3 million. That's interesting because in my discussions with Salchi, he pointed out that there's a huge chunk of the United States population that doesn't work and that doesn't file tax returns at all. So I think this right here corroborates Salchi is a trustworthy guy, so of course we can believe what he says, but this is another line of evidence that corroborates that statement that he shared here before. There's a whole, not everybody in this country who can work, not everybody works. All right. Black men / Black women, who earns what? Okay, so this is broken down in terms of brackets, in terms of income brackets. Okay, and so you have $100,000 or more, $65,000 to $99,999, and $50,000 to $64,999, and so on, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I'm trying to see if this is the median income. I'm assuming this is the median income for these two genders. All right, so full-time earnings, so $100,000 or more. All right, so Black women, $721,123. For Black men, it's $926,560. So there are 200,000 more Black men in that bracket of $100,000 or more. Now, this isn't saying how high we're going above 100,000. It's just these are the six-figure earners. These are the holy six-figure earners, and you know that number could go up to 500,000. Could go up to $999,999. Okay, but this data is saying there are more black men who are commanding those salaries than the women in that cohort. So $65,000 to $99,999. So there are 1.1 million black women in this bracket versus 1.3 million black men in this bracket. Okay. So $50,000 to $64,900. I'm sorry, $50,000 to $64,999. 1.1 million black women compared to 1.2 million black men. Let's keep going. This is very interesting. So $40,000 to $49,999. So right there, that $50,000 to that $64,999,000, that's a bit of a line of demarcation. So below that line, it's flipping. So below that line, that bracket is $40,000 to $49,999. There are according to this data set, there are 1 million black women who are in this group versus 975,263 black men. All right. $30,000 to $39,999. There are 1.3 million black women in this group versus 1.1 million black men. Okay. Very, very interesting. So for the $20,000 to $29,999 group, there are 979,882 black women versus 766,445 black men. Okay. So below that line, black women are out earning the black men in terms of this income value. And above that line, the men are out earning the women. Okay. And then finally, the $1 to $19,999. There are 684,893 black women compared to 508,606 black men. Okay. So once again, we're looking at economic data. How do you account for these numbers? What do these numbers mean? The fact that above a certain bracket, you have more men making these higher salaries, and then below that line of demarcation, you have more women. You have women leading in income below that line, and you have men leading above that line. What does that mean? Is that gender discrimination? Is that majors chosen? Is that what does that mean? I'm asking that as a rhetorical question, and we hear about this a lot in the dating context. Ray Alexander was there in the assortative mating context. We hear about that a lot, but also with this being an election year, a lot of messages are going to be thrown at us. A lot of things are going to be told to us in the media, in the movies. A lot of things are told to us that aren't always consistent with these numbers and these data sets. So everyone, that's what got me interested in this. Median household income, the mean, the median, the mode. Let me see if they have the exact units here. Let's see. No, they don't say if these are median household income or median personal income. Salchi, do you know what those data sets represent? What the units are for this one that I just showed? I'm sure you've seen this a billion times already. Okay. He says, from a pure productivity perspective at the national level, anyone earning less than $65,471 and especially less than $40,480 are underperforming. He says personal income per capita in 2022 was $65,471. Okay, Donnie Mack says this is full-time employment of individual income. Okay, now one other thing I thought about, and at least for, and I'm going to wrap this up, at least for the previous data sets that I showed for from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I don't think that's investments. That's not investments. That doesn't involve businesses. I don't think that involves dividends from stocks or passive income from real estate. So that's people punching the clock. That's W-2 income. So that's different than investments. Okay, Salchi said that graph simply grouped everyone per gross income. Okay, so that was not the median household or the median personal. But I wanted to do this stream. It was something I was thinking about prior to the new year. I've been watching Medium Man. I've been watching Diamond Dave. I had Diamond Dave here on my channel. He said he'd come back in 2024, and just thinking about everything, thinking about being in an economic war, quote unquote. Hearing so much talk about who makes more, who's the most educated, who brings what to the table, and just the messaging we're going to be hit with during this election season. I thought this would be interesting to look at and to cover here. So all of those links for now, they're below in the description box. I don't think that's spam, but if YouTube thinks your links are spam, they'll take the links out of your description box. But you guys can look that data up yourselves. I think most of you in the chat, you've seen that data already. But I'm going to close this out with this one because Ray Alexander did ask me to do the Patrick Bet David video or to give a reaction to Patrick Bet David's video about what Indian families are doing right versus everyone else. And I'm going to end with a rhetorical question. I think Salchi, I think you said you're going to show something. You're going to share something. I think we'll end with this. How do you explain this? When you break this out in terms of ethnic groups, how do you explain this? For Asian Americans, in 2022, their median household income was $108,700. For white non-Hispanics, it was $81,060. For Hispanics of any race, it was $62,800. And for Black people, it was $52,860. How do you explain that? That is a rhetorical question for the viewers and for the people watching on the playback. Everyone, please smash that like button if you haven't. Please smash that like button if you haven't. Salchi says, I'll post the recent median income. Okay. I'll wait for a few more minutes, then I'll wrap this up because I don't want to eat too late. Everyone, please smash that like button if you haven't. I'm going to read some of your comments while Salchi gets that, or maybe you'll share it in an email group. I think Ray Alexander has disappeared. Let's see, Detro 0861. Afternoon chat from Colorado. Oh, JJ Mars, you're in Colorado. I was in Colorado 3 months ago, and I was in Utah last week. Everyone, remember, if you're on Facebook, please follow the Big Words LLC Facebook page. Let's see. Man of Tomorrow passed through. Thank you for that compliment, Man of Tomorrow. He says, shout out to one of the real and practical PhDs within the space. Okay, I don't know who that's okay. Salt up. You know what? Speaking of this, I have this queued up. I'm gonna play this before I wrap the stream up. Let me see I have a new comment that came through. Okay. Detro0861 says Utah's beautiful Zion National Park is amazing. I'll have to go back. It was snowing. I didn't get to see that. I was in Ogden. Okay, Salchi says median weekly earnings during the third quarter of 2023 were Black men $968, Black women $886. So that's per week. Okay. Very interesting. Okay, Salchi mentioned Dr. Anthony Davies. I've interviewed Dr. Anthony Davies and James R. Harrigan from the Words and Numbers podcast. I'm a fan of their podcast. They came to my channel twice. They must be really busy. I would like them to come back. It would be fun to have them come back in 2024. But this clip is from our first discussion. Shout out to my mom. This goes back to my mom. We can get very, very valuable information from people who don't look like us. Let me slow down. We can get very, very valuable information from people who don't look like us and who are of a different hue. So we talked about means, medians, and modes in this stream. When you're listening to people talk about data, you also want to keep in mind stochastic versus deterministic relationships. And it's covered in this little clip here. It's only about 2 minutes. I promise it won't be long. So stochastic versus deterministic relationships. The master teacher says, compare that to hours studied. Okay. Stochastic versus deterministic relationships. Okay. So for the audience, in summary, Anthony, what I thought I heard you say was it's just understanding what's being discussed and being able to think things out to their logical conclusion, and not just taking an answer someone gives you. I'm going to read over those concepts again. And these are talked about all the time in the economics world: unintended consequences, and trade-offs. I don't think you guys talked about deterministic and stochastic relationships in cooperation and coercion, but I think for the audience, because a lot of people don't think about this, I'm just going to talk about this briefly. Anthony, please correct me if I'm wrong. So this was in one of your I think you're giving a lecture somewhere. So a deterministic relationship it's like 100% absolute. So Friday,
it's true in every case.
Yeah, sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Mm-hmm. Stochastic relationships are relationships which are for the most part true, but there are exceptions. So
right.
Example of the cat and the dog. Most dogs are bigger than cats, but in some instances there are cats that are bigger than dogs.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I teach this actually when I teach statistics. And I say to people, look, students have a hard time getting their heads around statistics because statistics are about stochastic relationships. And we're brought up from elementary through high school to think in terms of deterministic relationships. Deterministic relationship is true in every single case. So, 4 is bigger than 3. 4 is always bigger than 3. If you find one example in which 4 is not bigger than 3, you have upended everything we think we understand about mathematics, right? That's a deterministic relationship. But economics, in fact, all the social sciences are based on stochastic relationships that are true on average, even though they're not necessarily true in every case. And so the classic example is when someone says to me, well, what about the minimum wage? And I say, well, raising the minimum wage will cause low-skilled, low-educated workers to become unemployed. And invariably, somebody says, no, that's not right, because my Uncle Joe didn't have an education and didn't have much skills, and the minimum wage went up and he didn't lose his job. And I'm saying, no, this is a stochastic statement. It's true on average. It's not necessarily true in every single case. And so when you find your case of Uncle Joe who didn't behave the way that the economists predicted, that's not upending anything in economics. It's simply an outlier. It's an aberration.
Outliers, aberrations, distributions. I was listening to that earlier. That's in my library. I broke it up into 3 parts. When I was listening to that earlier, I started laughing because I was thinking about the Pizza Hut delivery guys in California, because they just raised the minimum wage. And what happened? They had to cut the delivery staff, and now they're using DoorDash and Uber Eats, right? But we've known this all along about in terms of economics. If you raise the minimum wage, there's going to be less money to pay the workers because these are businesses. But that's broken into 3 parts. It's in my library. If you guys want to watch that, you can watch that. But deterministic versus stochastic relationships, when you hear data being flung around, right? When you hear the candidates out there talking, and when you hear not everybody's like that. I think you guys know which arguments those are typically discussed in. When when that rebuttal typically comes out. If you're talking about a stochastic relationship, it doesn't have to be true 100% of the time, and it's often not. But if it's true the majority of the time, then it's true on average. All right? So keep those 2 vocabulary words in the back of your mind. When someone says not all, it's not always like that. That's not always true. Deterministic versus stochastic. All right, everyone. I've so Salchi in response to BGS's compare that to the hour studied. Salchi says source: the Bureau of Labor Statistics weekly earnings of wage and salary workers third quarter of 2023 released October 18th, 2023. All right, everyone. That's it. I need to get on with my evening here. Thank you to everyone who watched. Yeah, I plan to have Aaron Clary come back to talk about his book, Enjoy the Decline. I think it'll be fun to talk about, as this is an election year. It's a very good book. There are a lot of things in there to think about, and there are a lot of things that make you think. So, and then, yeah, Diamond Dave said he'd come back in 2024, and I'd like to have Dr. Tia-san Johnson come back. Dr. Tia-san Johnson is very popular. So look out for that. So everyone, thank you for watching this. If you're watching on the playback, please like, share, and subscribe. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar. This is Big Discussions 76, my original channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. Salchi says BGS was referring to the average hours kids study by race. Oh, okay. That's another. Yeah. Shout out to my father, who was a retired educator. He did, way back in the 1980s, he did bring that to my attention when I was trying to figure out how to be a student. He said, okay, well, Asian students study X amount of hours per week versus white students versus black students. And that accounts for the things we see downstream. Okay. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to donate something to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are in the description box. You can leave a super thanks as well. Please consider joining my newsletter. That link is below in the description box. Also, and the link for my book is in the description box as well. And with that, everyone, I will wrap up, and I will see you on the YouTube streets. MOSFET 99 says, we'll definitely give a full playback. Love discussions about economics. Okay. And thank you to everyone in the chat who provided support on the numbers and the figures and the data sets that I showed. So with that, everyone, enjoy the rest of your night. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. And also, everyone, get the most out of every day. Life is short. And yeah, try not to hold grudges for days and weeks and months at a time. Life is short. All right. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.